KIDO Talk Radio, Kevin Miller in the morning. I'm blessed to be a part of your day. Don't forget, coming up Thursday morning, we're going to be at Compass Public Charter School, and Thank You Thursdays. We're giving away Kevin Miller's dinner from the Indian Creek Steakhouse. Keep it here for your chance to win. You can check that out at KIDOTalkRadio.com. Joining us now, best-selling author Ron Kessler. Ron, it's been a while. Good morning.
Good to be with you.
Good to have you back. The Trump White House, Changing the Rules of the Game. Also, your new bestseller, an exclusive interview with President Trump. First and foremost, before we get to your book, what do you make of the state of things with the president and how he's changed the game right now? I mean, if you follow him on Twitter, you're getting all tweets at all sorts of times in the day and night.
Well, what I say in this book is that he will be seen as one of the greatest presidents based on the results, whether the economy, foreign affairs, unprecedented low unemployment rate, unprecedented low black unemployment rate, a roaring stock market, getting rid of ISIS, getting Saudi Arabia to go after radical Islamic ideology. He's about to meet with the North Korean leader, hopefully to end their nuclear program. It's really endless. At the same time, you have these tweets and controversies that make I think every Trump supporter gulp. And what I do in this book is explain what this guy is really all about, because he doesn't like people to know. He puts a shield over himself. He wants to project this tough guy image. When I interviewed him at Mar-a-Lago the night before New Year's Eve, I mentioned that he gives out $100 bills to janitors for when they move furniture, and routinely does that with workmen. And I said, why don't you let people know that? Because I know Sean Spicer was very frustrated that he never revealed his softer side. And even then, Trump, was obstreperous. He said, where did you get that? How did you get that? He doesn't want people to know that side of him. And in the book, I explain what his whole strategy is.
But what do you make of how he's handling all the crisis today, Ron, and the leftist unrelenting attack on him? You've known Trump. You've known him for years. He's a tough guy, but I don't think we've ever seen anything like this.
No, it's certainly unprecedented in every respect. But, he is tough, and he often welcomes some of these attacks in order to make himself the center of attention, because that in turn enhances his power. It means that foreign leaders want to meet with him, CEOs want to gravitate towards him. It is all a part of a strategy. I interviewed Norma Forderer, who was his top aide for 26 years. When she joined the organization, he only had 7 other employees, and she said there are 2 down. One is the one you see on TV, who makes these sometimes outrageous comments to get attention for his brand, his real estate brand, and now his presidency. And then there's the real Donald, whom insiders know, who's just the opposite. He's thoughtful, he listens, he's very deliberative when making decisions.
Ron Kessler joining us, author of the new book, The Unvarnished, Unbiased Inside Story of President Trump and His White House. Kevin Miller here at KIDO Talk Radio. So let's talk a little bit about some of the revelations in your book concerning his daughter and his son-in-law.
Ivanka and Jared have been responsible for the most disastrous decisions of the Trump presidency, namely firing Jim Comey. Now, obviously, he's turned out to be a turd, but at the same time, that led to the appointment of Mueller as special counsel. And even Trump has said privately, maybe that was a mistake. And also hiring Anthony Scaramucci, which has to be the most foolish hiring decision in the history of the White House. But he sweet-talked Jared and Ivanka into thinking that he could improve their image, and they're very naive, and they fell for it. That guy lasted only 10 days.
Indeed. What was it like for the loyal Trump people to mix with Reince Priebus and Sean Spicer with the RNC, and why was that marriage short-lived, sir?
I think the problem was that Trump just didn't have personal rapport with those individuals, whereas now he's going for appointees whom he's known a long time, people that he's known a long time, who are often friends. So he feels more comfortable with them and more on their wavelength. Actually, Reince, was responsible for a lot of the big successes of the administration early on, especially getting rid of regulations, which in turn has led to this roaring stock market, a feeling by CEOs that they can expand and hire more workers because they will not be overregulated. But Trump hired people like Tillerson, whom he never knew previously, Gary Cohn, whom he never knew, and now he's just going for people that he really is comfortable with.
KIDO Talk Radio, Ron Kessler joining us, talking about his new book on the Trump White House. Who's the number one leaker? And Ron, how did you find this out?
The number one leaker in the White House is Kellyanne Conway. I was interviewing her at the White House. It was recorded, and she began lambasting other colleagues, apparently forgetting that she was on the record at the time. And she said these nasty things about Reince Priebus that were obviously untrue. I didn't include them in the book because I thought it would be unfair to him, and also called Jared and Ivanka leakers. And aides have told me that they've seen text messages that she has sent to reporters in which she leaks information and disparages her colleagues. I think she does a brilliant job on TV, but she somehow has this compulsion to knock her colleagues and leak information.
Ron, let's take a look at your one-on-one with the president. What was that like for you personally?
Well, I've known Trump for 2 decades, and it was the same old Trump that I've known all that time. I first got to know him when I did a book on Palm Beach, and my wife Pam and I were both former Washington Post reporters, flew down with him, spent the weekend at Mar-a-Lago, and he was, totally in command, unlike the portrayal in the Michael Wolff book, which I call a novel, which claims that he has no memory and that he was unhappy about winning and that Melania was unhappy about winning. Of course, it was just the opposite. One of the disclosures in the book is that Melania is a tremendous influence, and again, it's something that Trump would rather not make public. He just doesn't want these personal things out. Melania sits in on meetings. She will summarize points that others make. She'll come up with her own strategy. And I quote Reince Priebus as saying that her judgment is impeccable. The White House aides are so impressed by her. She also will give articles to Trump, including negative ones that she feels he should read. She will disagree with them. I have an anecdote in the book about Mar-a-Lago. One day, Martha Stewart showed up and asked Tony Senecal, the butler, if she could take a tour of Mar-a-Lago. He said, sure, we'll set it up for 3 o'clock tomorrow. And Tony told Trump, he said, fine. Later in the day, Tony went to see if Trump needs anything in the private quarters, and Trump just erupted at him, started screaming at him, you dumbass, you should have scheduled it for noon tomorrow, because then the club members would be there, and they would see Martha, and Martha would see them. And at that moment, Melania walked in, and she said to Trump, I don't think you should be talking to Tony in that tone. Nothing more was said, but the next morning, both Tony and Trump were in the Mar-a-Lago living room, and Trump handed Tony $2,000 in $20 bills, would you believe? And I said to Tony, wasn't that strange, $20 bills? He said, everything about Mr. Trump is strange.
Well, Ron, you bring up a very good point when we're talking about the keeper of Mar-a-Lago. That you've just shared this story, and I believe 60 Minutes did a wonderful profile on him, and it really tells a lot about President Trump, and maybe you expand about this on the value of personal relationships and loyalties. A lot of people say that as a commodity, but Trump lives it, doesn't he?
That's right. And he uses the carrot and the stick when he's negotiating. But at Mar-a-Lago, the town council did not want to approve the estate as a club, And Trump believed it was in part because it would admit blacks and Jews. And some of the town council members belonged to clubs that to this day in Palm Beach do not admit blacks or Jews. And what Trump did was his lawyer, his Florida lawyer, Paul Rampell, who's Jewish and lives in Palm Beach, sent copies of Gentleman's Agreement and Guess Who's Coming to Dinner about bigotry to the town council members, essentially accusing them of being bigots. Trump also sued the town for $15 million because they wouldn't approve his club. But at the same time, he used the carrot. He invited the town council members to play golf with him and tennis with him, invited them to parties where he said gorgeous young women will be in attendance. And sure enough, eventually he got his club approved, and now it makes about $37 million a year. It's valued at $700 million. He bought it for $5 or $6 million. On the way down, that first time I met him, he imitated the nasal constricted tones of the old guard blue blood wasps in Palm Beach condemning Mar-a-Lago because it admits blacks and Jews. And he said, I want to be loved, and I enjoy sticking it to them. That sort of sums up Trump. I want to be loved, and I enjoy sticking it to the people who get in my way.
Well, you have to love that. The Trump White House, Ron Kessler joining us. Let's go back to a couple of your other books, The Secrets of the FBI. Because you've researched the FBI, we've had you on several times about that bestseller. What do you make of Comey and what's going on? And have you ever seen an FBI agent, never mind a director, act like the fired director has?
No, it's unbelievable. You know, even J. Edgar Hoover, who was sort of a Jekyll and Hyde, he started the FBI as a great organization, but he also engaged in massive abuses, would leak information that was negative about various politicians, but at least it was accurate. Whereas Comey is coming up with this business about it's possible this and possible that. It's possible that the pissing thing took place in Moscow. That is unbelievable for anyone to say that, let alone someone from the FBI, let alone an FBI director. So I'm totally appalled at Comey. At the same time, there has been some misinformation about some of the other accusations against the FBI. For example, it's true that Peter Strzok wrote these messages that were obviously inappropriate, stridently against Trump. But at the same time, one of the messages said that he doesn't want to join the Mueller investigation because he doesn't think there's anything there. So obviously he was separating his personal opinion from his professional opinion. And in the end, Mueller removed him, and it is Mueller in the end who will make the decisions. So there's quite a bit of smoke and mirrors about all that. Certainly, we saw McCabe lie. That is outrageous. Over and over again, Trump has been prescient about some of these issues because he was calling Comey a show horse way, way back before I picked up on that. And sure enough, we see that today in spades. Comey acting like he's King Tut and the moral arbiter of the world.
Well, and I don't know if you caught Chris Christie on This Week, but he said, look, when I worked for Comey as a prosecutor, if I would have said 11 days before an election or any time that the polls were influencing me, I would have been fired. Again, Ron, you've been embedded with these FBI agents. They're the best and the brightest, and they're getting a bad rub because of McCabe and Comey. How bad is it, do you believe, this political contamination?
Yeah, I thought Christie's comments were right on, and he referred to Comey's hubris. FBI agents are used to being attacked from all sides, whether it's over something that is justified or not. And most of the time they're so consumed by their work that they don't even have time to read the papers or watch TV. So I have faith, as you do, that they're just going to persevere and keep protecting us. The fact is we have not had a successful foreign terrorist attack, meaning from a foreign terrorist network, since 9/11. And it's because of the FBI, along with tips from the CIA and NSA, that have kept us safe. And that's a remarkable record.
Ron Kessler, the Trump White House, we appreciate it. What was your takeaway? I mean, you're a researcher. You've done this for years. You're a grizzled veteran. Did you come up with something that you thought, oh, wow, that you added in the book?
Certainly items like Kellyanne Conway and the fact that Trump actually recognizes that Jared and Ivanka are problems, has actually hinted to them that perhaps they should go back to New York, and made fun of Jared when he saw him on TV. He said, "Look at Jared; he looks like a child, like a little boy." A lot of little tidbits like that, but basically, and one astounding thing to me is I cite an August 14th Washington Post story, which has been totally ignored, which cites emails sent among the campaign aides, including Manafort, the campaign chairman, when this low-level Trump aide, Papadopoulos, proposed meeting with Russian leaders. And they all said, absolutely not. We're not going to have anything to do with Russia. Manafort even assigned someone to make sure that no one responds to anything like that. And he said we have to make sure Trump doesn't do any of this. So what more do you need to know about this Russia collusion foolishness than that?
Ron, stay out of trouble.
I will try, sir. Thank you.
Thank you. Ron Kessler, best-selling author, exclusively with us this morning. You're listening to Kevin Miller on KIDO Talk Radio. I'm sure and blessed to be a part of your day. Here's another update from our friends in California. You're going to love this. And apparently, California now has, the 8 of the 10 most polluted cities in America. That's right, our friends in California. No wonder people are moving here. Phone numbers 580-5436, 580-KIDO. But a new study by the Health Effects Institute explains that the world is breathing air deemed dangerous by the World Health Organization. And by the way, here's the headline from USA Today. Forget the Golden State. California should be called the smoggy state. So if you have friends or relatives in California, by the way, apparently, not only are people being bothered by the air in California, but you have people in San Francisco begging the city to do something about the homeless situation, about the trash and other things that are littering the streets of San Francisco. Somebody said, Kevin, have you been to San Francisco? It's one of the world's most beautiful cities. To me, I would be leery of going to San Francisco just based on what I've heard with the crime, what I've heard with, people using the sidewalks as toilets, people running around without any clothes on. Now, I think you're saying, well, Kevin, that's hyperbole. No, these are from published reports. And the fact is, one of America's most beautiful places to live is just being utterly destroyed. 8 of the 10 most polluted cities in terms of ozone pollution are in California, according to the American Lung Association annual State of the Air report. Los Angeles, Long Beach, took the distinction of being the nation's most ozone polluted city at nearly for the entire 19-year history of the report. Think about this. Over 133 Americans, more than 4 in 10, live with unhealthy levels of air pollution. What are they doing about it? Jerry Brown yesterday talking about whether or not he's going to send troops to the border. And you had one young female reporter say, hey, Governor, wasn't it a year ago that you said James Comey was a fraud, was this, that, and the other? Jerry Brown, well, I don't know if I said that. Oh, by the way, where were you a year ago? Trying to make a run at her age and such. Very misogynistic. But think about this, and maybe you've been in a place that at one time had a great run. Maybe it's been your favorite sports team. Maybe it's been a place that you've worked. Maybe it's been somewhere else, right? And all of a sudden you see that run coming to an end. And there have been business people that have written books about it. I was talking to our friend Jim Sandler from Sandler Sales Training yesterday, and we were talking about runs and choices and everything else. And just you see that with the state of California, where everyone has decided that they're going to, have their own niche of the pie. When you're afraid to throw somebody off a sidewalk because they're using it as a restroom, then you have issues, right? Then you have issues. And coming up, we'll try and get into the Starbucks debate. Some silly stuff going on at Starbucks. First, traffic and weather together. Coming up, Lieutenant Governor Brad Little on why he should be Idaho's next governor. That more with Kevin Miller only on KIDO Talk Radio. Good morning, Maggie.
Good.
And KIDO Talk Radio waiting on Lieutenant Governor Brad Little. He's always early. He actually called us, said 5 minutes ago, and we said, or 10 minutes ago, and said, hey, why don't you give us a call back, and we will get with him. Also keep it here for the latest in gubernatorial politics. We will go weekly now, and, our job is to give you the most accurate information on all the candidates. So we hope to get everybody else on. We had Congressman Labrador on yesterday, and we'll have Lieutenant Governor Brad Little on today. And we're efforting Dr. Ahlquist and Steve Pankey. Steve Pankey, I had an email from somebody, and they always assume, how dare you not put on Steve Pankey, you right-wing extremist? And I said, well, Steve Pankey will be on Friday. Joining us now from the trail, Lieutenant Governor Brad Little. Good morning, sir.
Hey, good morning, Kevin.
Can you believe that we're less than a month away from this endless campaign being over?
It's been a long job interview.
I bet it has. There are so many things to talk about. Let me get right to it. Your vision for the state of Idaho, and you're going, Kevin, I've told you this, since before the campaign. We've known each other for years. But for people that have been moving in here and are getting to know you, a lot of people, as you know, sir, have moved into the state of Idaho. Your vision for the state of Idaho, what happens if you're elected, when you're elected, the next governor of the state of Idaho?
Well, obviously, the biggest thing to me is that we stopped, which we're doing quite well now, exporting our kids. So we have the best possible opportunity to keep our kids here, and that means having a good job. Just this week, ALEC came out and moved Idaho from 10th up to 2nd as far as economic competitiveness, tax climate, low debt. It's a metrics of a lot of different measurements, but it reflects what we see going on in Idaho. And now our incomes, we got a long way to go, and we've just got to continue to try and get incomes up. And, the other part of incomes is having money left at the end of the year, and that means getting the cost of health care under control.
Yes. Now, I used to do some coverage with Alex, so that's the American Legislative Exchange Council. Is that correct?
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct.
Yeah, see.
Every year they come out with a rich state, poor state ranking, and we're nipping at the heels of Utah. I don't believe it reflects. I read the report. Even our most recent tax decrease, which I think maybe put us up at the top. We got plenty of people moving to the state of Idaho right now, and that's not a bad thing. But what we need to do is get incomes up. That's the most important thing in Idaho.
Indeed, the Wall Street Journal just came out with a piece on just how the housing boom has impacted Idahoans, people trying to get homes and such. You've been here through thick, through thin. Your thoughts on I don't want to, I guess that sounds liberal to say the lack of affordable housing, but when you have good people that do the paperwork and then they're losing out to people that come in with these huge offers, as a lifelong Idahoan, is there a role in government in managing this growth, sir?
Whenever government gets involved in these things, often the intent and the effect are different. That's always my last choice, is for government to get involved. What we need to do is have a regulatory atmosphere to where we can build these houses more affordably. And like I alluded to earlier, if we can get the cost of health care down, if we can get the federal government to accept the conditions of our executive order, which we're working on right now, if a lot of people's health care costs reduced by 30%, that's the oxygen you need to make those payments on that house. People's healthcare costs have gone from a car payment to a mortgage payment, and that's just not acceptable.
Indeed, especially when you see all the growth going on. Let's take a look at your fight to make sure that health care is affordable and accessible for Idahoans. How's that going? That's been receiving a lot of coverage lately.
Well, our conversations with the Health and Welfare, the CMS, and the White House is the conversations we have. They're very inclined. Idaho is so different from all the other states. We're having to kind of walk them through why this is good for this administration to allow us to do this. There are a lot of other states, particularly the Republican states, that are very anxious for us to be successful here and to be able to issue these plans because we've got all these people that are dropping their insurance, and insurance doesn't work if the only people using insurance are the high utilizers, the sick, the older. We've had somewhere between 80 and 130,000 people in Idaho that should be having insurance drop their insurance. Before Obamacare, we had the most affordable insurance of any state with the exception of one. Since Obamacare, what's happened is it's driven up the cost of health insurance. The young people and the healthy people are off of insurance, and that just adds to the cost to everyone else.
Lieutenant Governor Brad Little with us, running for governor here. Kevin Miller in the morning, KIDO Talk Radio. Hey, I'm wondering, is there anything that you all can do as public servants to alleviate the high cost of gas? I know what you're saying, Kevin Miller. You're going to go back to selling soap here in a minute. However, we've talked about that before. We've talked about that before, how our gas prices impact our economy. Is that something where you should let the market decide, or is that something we should look at?
Well, there's a lot of components in the cost of fuel. Obviously, the fact that we don't produce, we produce very limited here. What we're producing here in Idaho now gets transported down to Utah, where it's processed and then put in a pipeline and brought back up here. But that's a very, very minimal part of what we've got. That's, from a geography standpoint, Utah, Wyoming, Montana, they've all got oil and gas industries over there. Idaho was deprived in our geology as far as having fossil fuels here. We've got, with new technology, we've got some that's being developed, but it's just because we're on the end of the pipe. There's a pipeline that comes down from Alaska, from Washington. There's a pipeline that comes up from Utah, but we're on the end of the ditch, and if there's a big supply problem, then the cost of our fuel is going to go up, and that's just geography.
Well, I wish you could be the czar of fuel and just magically wave a magic wand and promise us you're going to bring in lower fuel prices.
Well, sometimes we do, sometimes we don't. Right now, I understand that there's some work being done on some of the refineries, and that's part of the reason that the cost of fuel has gone up. I'm hopeful that it's going to normalize to where it was. But it's an incredible thing that's taken place in this country, to where we are more and more every day dependent upon fossil fuels from America and not from abroad, and that is a great thing for America. We've got some supply issues to where we need to have the capacity to have more fuel here, and we need to continue to work on that. But I couldn't be happier that America is not dependent upon anybody else, and that we're self-sufficient here, and the president and this administration has been very helpful in that area.
Which brings us to another point, the growing influence of solar. Now, you and I remember back when Jimmy Carter started talking about solar panels, and they were all debunked, but particularly in a state like Idaho, solar power, hydropower that we're so efficient at using, but solar power with the advanced technology, could that be a further way to power the state to ease off our dependence on fossil fuels?
Well, we have to have energy that's available 24/7.
Right.
When it's cloudy, when it's dark. But if we had an energy plan, the state wrote an energy plan. It's been 10 years ago now, where we said we want 20% of our energy to be renewable, wind and solar. And of course, it drives me nuts that they don't want to call hydropower renewable. It's the most renewable that we've got. But we're there. You know, if you look at the wind turbines, if you look at the solar projects that are being put in, that's a great thing, because now we have to balance that with gas plants and with, you know, obviously battery technology is going to get there sooner or later. There's a lot of battery technology research that's being done over at Idaho Falls lab, and I believe that's going to get there. But we really have done an incredible job of reaching that goal of 20% in Idaho. But you still have to have sustainable, affordable energy, and Idaho's got the most affordable energy of any state except for maybe one right now.
Lieutenant Governor Brad Little with us, Kevin Miller in the morning here on KIDO Talk Radio. What have you learned on the trail? You like to listen. You like to engage with folks. So any interesting tidbit that you've picked up on that you'd like to share with us?
Well, the common denominator, people wanting to have an opportunity for their kids to be here, or for those that left to come back, is particularly in rural Idaho, is a big thing. Every day, entrepreneurs put in a new piece of equipment that does away with a job. And so we have to have a new skilled workforce, and that's why I applaud you for all you do to recognize and honor our professionals in the classroom as you go out in the mornings to go to these schools. But we have to have that skill set for these new jobs. The jobs that existed 10, 20, 30 years ago, many of them are gone. But the new jobs just require a much higher skill set, whether it's an engineering degree or whether it's being able to read the screen on a advanced manufacturing or food processing piece of equipment, the coding. Idaho's our increase in the number of kids learning how to code is leading the nation right now, because we're recognizing that incredible software industry that's developing here in the Treasure Valley, around Idaho Falls, and up at Coeur d'Alene in particular. But we are now doing coding. We're putting programs in our ag extension offices all over the state of Idaho so these kids can have exposure to that.
Lieutenant Governor Brad Little with us here. We'll get you out on this one, sir. Education, certainly you've just touched on it, the big issue. You and the governor have continued. And a lot of folks, again, I've only been here 9 years, but I remember the tough times and the rainy day fund and the astute leadership that you both had. Now, contrast that with today with the good times, just trying to manage all this growth, all the new technology, and trying to educate these kids so they get the skills that they can stay here. Your plan for education, if elected, sir?
Well, the consensus we've got on continuing to invest in education, obviously we got to get these kids reading proficiently at the end of the third grade. To me, that's job one, because the rest of your investment in education has a tough time if we don't have these kids reading. And so whatever we can do in early childhood, in kindergarten, in reading coaches, in the new technology that's there, in assessing because these kids are different, is assessing what does it take to help Johnny or Sally learn to read is job one in my mind, because that's critical to the modern workforce. But the consensus that we have between the educators, school trustees, the state, in continuing to invest in education, to put $100 million in new money in education this year and really not have a negative debate against it, to me is incredible compared to what it used to be when we'd have arguments about education.
Well, Lieutenant Governor Brad Little, we appreciate you, and we'll talk to you next week. We'll see you around on the trail, sir.
All right. Thanks, Kevin.
Thank you, sir. There we have it, Lieutenant Governor Brad Little with us. Patsy, sorry about that. We only had him for a brief time, but I'm sure if you have a question, as you heard, the Lieutenant Governor does listen to our program, and we appreciate him and everybody running for office. Kevin Miller in the morning. Phone number's here, 580-5436, 580-KIDO. If you have a thought remembering Barbara Bush, we will love to hear from you. Big news last night. People were upset about the stadium, the proposed stadium, but the developer says, well, that's just a few people. When will they listen? Kevin Miller, KIDO Talk Radio. And don't forget, coming up Thursday, Compass Public Charter School, promoting our schools, securing our future, brought to you by CapEd Credit Union, Team Mazda Subaru, and Grade Power Learning in Meridian. And I'll be sharing with you my lessons on Thursday that I've learned from Grade Power Learning. I'll be there today. Last week it was prepositional phrases, independent, dependent, and correlating clauses or independent and dependent clauses, commas and such, passive voice. I have trouble with passive voices. So if you would like an opportunity for your child to get free ACT or SAT prep or free study skills prep, go to KIDOTalkRadio.com right now and write a 100-word essay very, very quickly on the power of education in your life right there on our website, powered by Great Power Learning. We're going to pick one person to win that, thanks to our great friends at Great Power Learning. Let's go to the phones. Patsy, sorry about it. I didn't get you on with the Lieutenant Governor, but good morning, ma'am. You're on KIDO Talk Radio.
Hey, thank you for getting me on. I just have a question. It may be a little bit of an odd question, but it matters to me and maybe it matters to others. I was wondering, is it true that Brad Little is the only candidate running that is not LDS?
Well, I don't think Steve Pankey is. We'll ask him coming up this week. But
okay.
As far as the big three, I would say yes.
Okay. And, the reason it matters to me, the short time I've lived in Idaho, I'm not originally from around here, I have felt that the LDS have a lot of power, a lot of control, and I guess I take issue with that when it comes to politics. So,
well, wait a minute, Patsy.
Just my question.
Well, before you go, why don't you expand on that a little? It's just you and me here.
No, it's everybody that listens to you. I have to be careful even because of the position that I'm in the job that I have. But I know that a lot of the folks that work at Micron, the LDS have a strong flavor at Micron and in other organizations here. It feels like sometimes you're put in those positions if you are LDS, if you go to the right church, you're in the right group of people. And coming from a background such as that, again, I take issue with that. I think people shouldn't be judged by the religion or the organization that they're involved in. Do I think LDS are good, moral people that I would want as my neighbor? Absolutely. I do have many LDS friends. But when it comes to politics, I don't want to see someone get in that position because of the church that they go to.
That's the good thing about the Catholics. We really just don't support our own. We just kind of throw our lot in with anybody.
Okay, and I don't know. I just really feel there's a strong.
That was my attempt at humor.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Thanks for the mercy laugh. Thanks for the mercy laugh.
Yeah.
I appreciate that, Patsy.
Yeah.
But,
yeah. Well, LDS I know has a strong flavor here. I don't think anybody would argue with me on that one.
Okay.
Would you? Would you argue with me on that?
I don't think there's anything wrong with that, personally. I don't. I see them as good moral folks that.
That's what I said.
Are I see how what they do, and I look at them and I go, wow, they've got it going on. So I mean,
yep.
they behave a lot. There's
no doubt about that.
They behave a lot better in public than I do.
They do have a lot going on. I would agree with you on that, but I don't know that it's always for the right reasons.
Wow.
And I think you're being very politically correct.
Probably that's the first time in my life I've ever been called politically correct.
I think for the position you're in on the radio station that's a good place to be, probably.
Well, you should hear you should hear when they call me the right-wing extremist.
Well, I happen to love your radio station. I happen to really think you're doing a good work. But I think it's okay to not be politically correct all the time. So thank you, Kevin.
Thank you, ma'am. Bye-bye, Patsy. See that? Hear that, upper management? It's not okay to be politically correct all the time. Traffic and weather. All right. Spilled a little coffee on me. Ron in Caldwell, you've got about 40 seconds to bring us home. Good morning, sir.
Good morning. I was just wondering, these people that are running for governor, when they're going to start talking about the public transportation in the state and lack thereof, especially between Ada and Canyon County.
Well, that's a very good point.
Okay. Have a good day, Nate.
Actually, it's Kevin.
Kevin, I'm sorry, Kevin.
It's okay, Ron. You have a great day, sir.
Yes, sir.
All right. Appreciate that. We appreciate all points of view, but we'll ask that. Let me write that down. Public transportation. Good point. See? We can always learn from everybody. Coming up next, our personal favorite. Does Idaho need Nonini? Senator Nonini in. Next, Kevin Miller.